Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, badass.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
I am good. I am back home.
Yes.
Which is always so homey.
Oh, yes. And I'm sure that bed feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Being in your own bed.
Yes. That is always amazing, right? And always, it's really the only thing we miss. I mean, Jenna and I think the kids miss home more than we do.
Yeah.
Jenna and I really are wandering souls, like I think we could live out of suitcases forever.
Really?
and have no problems with it.
Oh my gosh. Jay and I, not so much. So we are traveling.
Yeah.
And we are in a hotel right now. So that's why I have the peculiar background. But we are not so much. We enjoy our own bed. It's definitely something that we really look forward to when we come back from a trip.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our beds are really comfy too, and better than any bed, that we find in a hotel. And sleep is so important. But at the same time, the adventure aspect kind of takes over.
Yeah.
But it always very nice to be in your own bed. But our kids miss more things. Our kids miss their toys. Our kids miss their game consoles. Our kids are like, this is great. Get us home now. Come on. Where we're like, what's one more step? Don't you want to see the world's largest whatever? And they're like, no, that's just like the 5 last world's largest whatevers we saw. We're like,
Oh my gosh. Well, so you've been on a whirlwind of a tour, a lot of different places that you went. We've done a little bit of a whirlwind tour here in California, is where we're at currently. And then my daughter is doing even more of a whirlwind tour.
Right.
So she's, today she's heading to Rome. So she's been to London. They then went underground, and went to Paris. Then they went to Barcelona.
They went underground, with the subways, the super fast subway.
Yes, exactly. And so then she went to Barcelona. She said Barcelona was her favorite so far. But I think once she gets to Rome, she'll really love Rome.
Yeah.
Jay and I really loved it. But Paris, she loved the food there. So she had some crepes there and loved that.
That's awesome. The one and only time I went to Europe was when I was Riley's age. And I had worked my ass off to save up money to do it. And it was amazing, but we just went to Spain. So by the time we left, I was dreaming in Spanish. It was so cool. But we didn't go to Barcelona. We spent a lot of time in Spain, in the other areas of Spain. So Barcelona is still definitely on my list. But I love big cities. So I really loved Madrid. That was my favorite part.
Ooh, nice.
But we were also there around Easter. So seeing the super religious and rituals and ceremonies and almost like caravans, they would have parades, and the women in Sevilla were wearing black, almost like veils over, in honoring their very deeply Catholic traditions and culture. And so that was totally interesting to see, because I felt like my grandma was pretty Catholic, right? And and I went to church with her all the time. I was like, kind of as a kid, I was kind of infatuated with like church because my parents weren't very churchy.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was there and I was like, oh, so this shit is like next level. Like they are so serious about this.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I hadn't been exposed to much, but literally it's a totally deeper level. Like, like they all wear black. It's all, it's
Very
very
ceremonial.
Yes. Yeah. Super cool. So she's going to see all sorts of interesting things,
Yeah, she also gets to go to Vatican City. So now with the new Pope and everything. And she also, I was like, okay, we got to find an outfit for you for the Vatican. She's like, I could just wear one of these. I'm like, no. I'm like, you can't wear your regular clothes to the Vatican. And for one, you got to cover your shoulders. 2, you got to cover your knees. And she's like, what? Like, what?
Oh, I suppose. Right. I mean,
yeah, it's they let us know that this was the criteria. And so I had to have, I'd gotten her dress pants. She was like, why did you give me these dress pants, from like a while back? And I was like, because for more dressy occasions. And so I was like, here you go. Here's the dress pants that you're gonna need. And then I found a shirt for her and she was like,
poor girl. But I get it. I mean, I totally get it. Travel clothes are a whole nother ball of wax as well, right? Like, I get it.
All right. Well, we have Myra and Carmen joining us. So they're in a car together. And actually, that is who I came out to see. So I got to see Myra and Carmen and her family this week. And her daughter graduated. And Myra and Carmen bet on who was going to win in golf, whether it was my husband or Carmen's daughter.
Oh, yeah. She's like a super golfer.
Yeah. So who do you think won between Jay and Carmen's daughter?
I'm going with Carmen's daughter. I'm going girl power for the win.
I thought so too, but Jay pulled it out.
What? Damn it. Damn it, Jay. Damn it. Well, was he pleased?
Say that again.
Was he pleased with himself?
He was. He was very impressed with her, especially he said they were paired up with 2 other guys, and he turned to the other 2 guys and he goes, just so you know, I think she might kick our ass. Is what he told the guys. And they were like, oh, okay. And they definitely, they both definitely kicked apparently the other guys' ass. They were just, they're retired, just having fun, that kind of thing. But Jay said that when she teed off on that very first one, they were all like, oof.
Right. Uh-oh.
But Jay does know how to bring it on. I can tell you he is competitive.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's funny because he's such a chill dude in other aspects, right? Like,
yeah.
So, do you 2 struggle because you're really fucking competitive?
Well, I think that's what he liked about me. Like the first time, our very first date, we went to a place to eat and it had shuffleboard. And, I'd never really played shuffleboard. And at least not that type of shuffleboard. And we ended up playing some locals that go there every week. And we ended up beating them. So I think he liked the fact that I was competitive like him.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. But what about when you guys play games against each other? Do you ever do that?
Oh, yeah. No, our second date was playing tennis. And he beat me, we did one set. He beat me 7-5.
Oh,
yeah. I'm very, very competitive with him. And Gavin is on that level where he's starting to beat his dad in certain things as well. Yeah. And Myra also said, yeah, Elena played off of the white balls with the guys. So, and Jay said, he was like, hey, you don't have to play off, these tees with us. You can, play on, I think it's the reds. And she was like, no, she was like, I'll play. And so I talked to Jay about that. And I'm like, had she have played on hers, she might have beat you. And I said, so that tells you a little bit more as well on how good she is.
Right. I don't know what you're talking about with balls.
When you tee off, there's different ones. There's all the way in the back, which I think is the blues. And that's like for the professionals, the pros. Then there's the white, which is for the younger men or older, more elderly gentlemen. And then I think it's the reds, which is the younger kids. And sometimes there's a green in there too, from what I understand.
So based on skill? Or
based on strength. So like you gain strength or lose strength, so it's based on more like strength of teeing off is what I understand.
Okay.
But everything else is the same. It's more like the distance that you have to do to be able to tee off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she teed off the same thing that Jay did.
As the guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they were just playing with two strangers because you had to have like a foursome.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. We didn't get to watch them because there was no spectators that were allowed to be there.
Yeah, golf is interesting to me.
I know it is.
Like I wouldn't want. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I wouldn't want to just like all of a sudden have to play with strangers. Like, what if you're just not getting along and then you're stuck with them for half a day, right?
Oh, I know. It happens all the time.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep. All right. Well, one of the things that Cate and I were talking about is that I had to, for one, being in California and being 3-hour difference, it is 7:12 my time. And I didn't feel like I had time to sort of decompress.
Yeah.
And also it sort of fits with today's topic of the universal law of energy. And so it also goes into some of the things that we'll talk about later. But Cate and I thought that it might make sense to start things out or start the topic off by just spending a minute, taking a minute to meditate and really come into our energy so we can spend a little bit more time being more in tune with each other and connected with each other and connected with you. And we wanted to see if you guys would join us. So I'd like to do just a minute, and I can set a timer, which can help us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Give us some suggestions on what you want to do. Are we trying to clear our minds? Are we trying to invite energy into, what are your thoughts on what we can do inside our heads in this minute?
What I tend to do is related to the law of energy is that whenever I'm meditating, I will feel what I feel or I'll see what I see. And then I try to bring myself back to the present. So sometimes when you meditate, you might end up worrying about what you're going to do today or something about the past. But I try to bring myself back to the present and just try to feel what's going on with my body and pay attention to it. And I think that is also a part of today's lesson as we start to talk about the law of energy. So I do want people, as they are meditating, sort of note down after you're done the things that you saw, if you are able to have a mind's eye, or if you saw certain colors, or sometimes I don't necessarily see anything, but I will feel things in my body. So I'll feel a pain in a particular place, or I'll have a particular feeling, or something that will come to mind. So sort of note those types of things. You're done, the things that you saw, if you are able to have a mind's eye, or if you saw certain. Are you hearing me? Or sometimes I don't necessarily. I hear you, Cate. Are you playing me? My body, so I'll feel a pain in a particular place, or I'll have a particular feeling. Cate.
What's going on?
I hear me in whatever it is you're playing. Those types of things.
Yeah.
You're playing the video. Have LinkedIn up.
Oh,
mind's eye, or if you saw, are you hearing me?
yes. Sorry. Hold on. What is going on?
I hear you.
Okay.
Okay. I could just hear nothing but like the video of a current video, but it was delayed.
Yes, I'm so sorry. So here's what's happening. We are not getting any comments from LinkedIn.
Oh, got you.
Yeah, like so people are showing up on LinkedIn, but we aren't getting any comments.
Okay, but you got to
today.
turn down your volume.
Okay.
And so I'll take a look and just see, but if we can maybe spend a little time on just the meditation.
Yeah.
And then maybe, so the only one I see is your comment, Kate. So I guess you tested it maybe? No, that was a previous one. Okay, now I do see Kate or Kim now.
Yeah.
So you guys might need to switch over to YouTube. Sometimes LinkedIn will do that. So if you guys want to flip over, oh no, I see Kim.
Good. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Great.
So, okay. And so, all right. So let's spend a little time meditating and then just sort of note what it is that you're feeling. I'm going to put a timer on for 1 minute and we'll just spend 1 minute meditating.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Here we go. And sometimes you might need to stretch, get some stuff out before you really get to meditate. And I try to focus on taking some time to breathe in a little bit deeper. So like 4 counts in, and I hold it for 4 counts, out 4 counts, and then hold it for 4 counts. Wow, that was a fast minute.
Yeah.
Wow. I could have gone longer. Just getting started.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you might need a little bit more time and things like that. And Bryce said that he is here and he can clarify on the golf questions later as needed. So yay.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's all very confusing.
So did you see anything when you started to meditate, Kate?
No, I don't. I never seen things when I meditate, but okay. I did
for the most part.
I felt like some white light, like, and some energy just kind of flowing, especially with my breath.
Okay. Yeah.
So as I was breathing in deeply and holding, when I was breathing in and holding, I could kind of like sense, like from my crown down, like, some kind of like peaceful, like pleasant light. And then as I was breathing out, it was just kind of like sinking into my body. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of, I felt like the minute goes really fast.
It did. Yeah. I could have done it much longer. I could have probably done it at least another minute because I was just starting to really get into it. Did you have any particular pains or things like that you noticed, or things within your body that you felt?
No, in the beginning I felt tight in my neck and I kind of rolled it a little.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm pretty good at disassociating from my body if I need to, so I did that. Okay, I'm going to stop feeling in my body and focus on my breath. And I'm able to kind of switch that on and off.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, when I closed my eyes, I saw like a golden color.
Ooh.
And that's not uncommon. So I tend to see different different colors. And so one of the things that I also do, and I'm just going to type it in, is a lot of times I'll type in spiritual meaning and whatever it is that I'm noticing, whether it's a pain or a color. And
Oh,
so
okay.
it says, in many spiritual traditions, gold symbolizes enlightenment, purity, and divine connection. It's associated with wealth, prosperity, and the power of the sun, representing wisdom, illumination, and spiritual awakening, which also I was feeling a lot in my shoulders. And whenever I looked at that, there's a lot of different things there. There's everything from carrying the weight of the world to lack of support, but there was also spiritual awakening, which goes with the golden color. And said shoulder pains can be a symptom of a spiritual awakening or transformation as your energy shifts. And so a lot of it is just also being mindful of like what else you're going through, and having a little bit more reflection in what it is. And that's one of the things as we start to think about the law of energy, it's recognizing our unique energy patterns and signatures. But a part of that is reflection. It's also reflecting on meditating and spending some time just understanding what your body is telling you. But so many times we are go, 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 go.
Right.
World that we don't actually spend time really understanding what energy and what flow and what the universe is really telling us. And that's really when we're in silence. That's when we really can get some of our best information and flow within us.
That makes sense. Perfect sense. I think when we allow ourselves to think about the possibility that everything really is energy and it's all, it opens yourself up to an entirely new perspective, like 100%, right? And you can find yourself floating back in between, right? A kind of a negative like headspace and a positive one. And a lot of times, well, a lot of people associate the positive with like, I'm vibing, I'm in my good vibrational level, I'm, and I think there is some reality to that. But I also think that part of energy is darkness, right? Like, so there has to be a balance there as well. And you have to kind of be willing to be open to that in order to recognize the way that you want to control the energy around you, right? So I think that was one of the big reasons why we wanted to start with the meditation, because so much of this is about awareness and being in touch, and right? I mean, that's at the foundation. You can't start to even direct energy or try to move yourself through different energy fields if you aren't aware.
Yeah. And when you think about, just the law of energy, and then you can get into a little bit more about the scientific aspect of it, it really is about that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It simply can just be transformed. So when we think about positive and negative energy, and things like that, it's not that you're necessarily getting rid of it. It's that it's moving and it's becoming something else. And so maybe talk a little bit about how the universal law of energy is rooted in the principles of physics and the scientific aspect of the law of energy.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about this in past sessions around quantum physics and how so much of our reality is really based on the way the light hits like the atoms and the energy and the matter around us, right? Like, so, and how it really is, you know, all in movement. It's all, you know, along kind of a big, like, you know, radio wave, if you want to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So Einstein did a lot of this foundational work back in the day, and he, you know, everybody knows the equation E equals MC squared.
Yeah.
You know, that is the equation that says that energy and matter, energy and mass have a direct relationship to each other. They are not different. So even, you know, the table, you know, is made of energy.
Yeah.
Like that's what the equation says, right? But what I found interesting about Einstein is that there, at the time of his death, there was still confusion around like, what are electrons, right? Like for a long time, there was just this, there was this idea that they were almost like planets, right? Like that they had these like rings around them, and that they were kind of stationary. And so at his death, someone asked him, or close to death, someone asked him, like, what is the one thing, you know, he wished he could have learned? And he said, like, I really wish I could have learned what is an electron. And as science has progressed, the super cool thing about it, and it's really interesting that this isn't like more mainstream knowledge in a lot of ways, I think because it is just so complex to really understand, is that they've been studying electrons, and you can literally be seeing like an electron, but it can exist in two different frames, right? So like, so the example that I thought was really helpful and helped me to understand it is like if you think of a cop like monitoring a highway, okay? So the way that energy works is that you can be tracking and understanding its motion, but also not be able to understand its exact position because it's in constant transformation. So the cop can clock it and say, okay, he's speeding, he's going 150 miles per hour. But at the same exact time that he can clock that velocity, he also can have the complete inability to locate the position, right? So he can clock it and say to himself, I got to go after that guy. He's going 150, but have no ability to start like the chase because he can't locate him, even though he could locate his velocity, right? So that is at the basis of our matter and mass, is that what actually is solid is because of movement, like actual energy being a part of its inner like contents and setup. So it's super cool. It's a great rabbit hole you can go down into if you want to read about quantum physics and the makeup of all that is the universe, and the perspectives that we have in the reality around us, right? So very, very interesting. But I think the biggest thing to point to is back to Einstein's original theory, which still stands true, that E equals MC squared. You know, that energy and mass have a direct relationship with each other.
Yeah, they're interchangeable. And then quantum physics also demonstrates, you know, as we know through this scientific principle, is that everything is made up of energy. But additionally, it's also our thoughts and our emotions, which can then influence our physical reality. And that's where I think we're getting further and further into more people understanding this concept. So everything, you know, related to E equals MC square was based on like a chemical reaction, you know, a physical reaction, and all of these types of things. But as we start to get into the quantum physics, it's understanding that it goes even beyond that. It's more about how our thoughts and our emotions really influence everything that is happening to us. So we manifest ultimately through energy. So we're eventually going to talk about the law of attraction, but this is the basis. The law of energy is the beginning part of understanding, the physical aspects. And I actually just posted something on this. Is I stated, as we look at the law of energy, everything is energy. From the smallest thoughts to the grandest actions, it all starts with the energy we emit. Your thought begins it, guiding your intentions and setting the stage for what's possible. And your emotions amplify it, adding intensity and vibration to your energy. And then your actions increases in momentum, turning those thoughts and feelings into tangible manifestations in your life. And so ultimately, we hold the power to be able to take that energy and watch the universe respond to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about this so much, right? Like about how much our mind bullets, that's what I like to call them, can actually, control our reality, and how much power we have over our own reality. Scientifically, they've done so many experiments that are really interesting. I think I've talked about the one that I read in a Wayne Dwyer book before, where, they gave placebos to folks. They actually did, they actually did this with a knee replacement study, where they gathered a group. They told them all that they need knee replacements. They only gave the knee replacements to half of the people, and or something like this, and like people that literally thought that they were needing a knee replacement, were struggling to walk or having trouble, and there was really literally nothing wrong with them. It was just all the power of their own mind. There are also scientific studies now, even just like small ones, where they tell the observer of a very simple experiment to think one thing, and the experiment ends up in that, in doing that one thing, right? And then they continue to study it and try different, try different areas or try different outcomes. So it's super cool. And it's my favorite way to proceed in life in general, is, to project my mind around what I want, who I am, and just start being it, right? Rather than continuously struggling for other signs or other markers that I'm there, right? I just this is who I am, and I just go for it. So if I want to live a life a certain way, I just start doing it, even if physically it doesn't make sense to me that it is that way. I know that my mind is so powerful that I can create it through intention and through action and through thoughts. But if
I was also thinking, sometimes people are like, but why isn't it happening? Because they're like, oh, but I'm thinking this stuff. Well, you also have to set the stage for things to be able to happen. You can't do things without the action, that also comes with it. Like, you can think things and visualize things and have that energy and that motion, but you also have to take the action. It's the action, that also comes with it. So I wanted, people that might, because I've heard this before where people are like, oh, but I'm thinking it, or I'm doing affirmations, and that's just, part of it. You also have to be working in setting up the things you need to be working on, the things you need to work through, because sometimes energy gets stuck. It gets stagnant. And when it's stagnant, it's because you're supposed to be learning something or doing something different as well. So I wanted to just also point that out as well.
Yeah, I think that's important. because that is where people, I think, fall down, right? Like, so they think that, like, let's talk about manifesting for a second. Like, I think, they think that to manifest is to just put all your energy into these thoughts and to have them over and over and over and over and over again.
Right.
But as we all know, what comes next from thoughts are actions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if your actions aren't aligning with the thoughts you're having, you're at a stalemate. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to point out 2 examples of energy and also thoughts, the power of thoughts. So think about an illusionist. An illusionist, you don't even understand that they are actually stating something that then makes you lead to the answer that they want. That is really what illusionists end up doing. People that do like the thought things, and they're like, and they pull up and people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But if you end up studying them, you'll notice that they actually do certain things that will lead you thought-wise to the answer that they want. So also think about that just in life and the things that you're listening to.
Right.
And that's why a lot of people are being turned off by media, because they're leading us to a conclusion, and the conclusion that they want. So when we pull back our energy and pull back and say, you know what, let me, look at what it is I'm actually listening to and the people that I'm surrounding myself with. And, so think about energy just amongst the things that you do on a daily basis as well. Yeah. The things you choose to listen to, the people you choose, the energy you choose to surround yourself with. So think about those types of things. Those are the things that are influencing you on a day-to-day basis. And then I also wanted people to try this experiment. So this is something that I learned from a Dolores Cannon book. Okay. And so you take your hands and you put them out like it's in a ball. And then what I want you to do is I want you to bring them together and tell me, at what point do you feel the energy from your hands, your other hand? And so for me, I feel it right here. I don't even have to like touch my hands. If you go in and out, you will feel the energy between the two. Can you feel that?
Mm-hmm.
And so you ultimately can make it further and further. But I mean, I feel tingling. I always feel tingling between my fingers when I do this. But that is ultimately your body's energy. Your energy emits from your body. And that's also how like energy healing and Reiki and different things can also help. So whenever you have stagnant emotional block or emotional energy that is stuck within your body, it's also important to be able to release those types of things. So how, when we think about our daily interactions and things like that, things that help us from an emotional or thought or intention perspective is, one, having empathy for people. So being able to just be aware of another person's emotional state and understanding how that energy flows between you and that person. And I know for you, active listening is a big thing, a part of what you do.
Yes. Yeah. So like for a long time, I thought I attributed active listening to, I just didn't understand that what a big part of active listening was also kind of picking up on the energy that the person is bringing to the table, right? Or bringing to the conversation or struggling with. So, so active listening is a big part of active listening is also just trusting your intuition and knowing, right? Like, so, for me, I have a great ability to when I'm in conversation with someone, I've gotten my active listening, so I think tuned that I can pick up like, okay, this person I don't know exactly what it is, but they're struggling with this, or they're scared, or they're this, and then I can ask questions to confirm, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big part of active listening, is opening yourself up to the fact that you may have a sense, you don't know for sure, and you have to ask the right questions to listen, right?
Yeah.
So you can't ask, directed questions that are only going to further support the assumption you're making.
Right.
You have to ask open-ended questions. I mean, we should do some examples on that sometime. Like the difference between, if I ask this question, what is the answer, versus if I ask it this way, what are the possibilities of the answer?
Yeah, and it's a lot of actually what I do with the emotional bungee jumpers, and
Right.
we're now doing it, so it's not leading questions, it's not close-ended questions, it's open-ended questions. But that it really provides more of a profound exchange of energy when you are focused on engaging fully in a conversation and doing that active listening. One of the things that I've always found is that I can pick up energy from people just almost immediately. Like I notice just even slight, things within their faces. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
So things that they do within like their eyes or things like that. So I learned also face reading, but I also was intuitively doing it already. But I also, face reading has allowed me to learn even more in how it is that people communicate and when it is they may be stressed and things like that. But I can tell when someone has something going on almost immediately just through their energy, or also understanding if they have like a prolonged, like this is more not just a now situation, but it's something that they're dealing with across, just their lifetime. Because some people I'm like, energy wise, I will pick up people that I'm like, I don't know what this is, but there's something, going on with this person. And then I have had people where I end up going to the person that I care about, and I'm like, hey, I just wanted you to know that this is the type of vibe that I get from this person. So I had this with my ex-husband. His aunt was dating a guy, and I told my husband, I was like, I'm just letting you know that this guy is, I said, I don't feel like he's like going to molest her or rape her, but he's going to beat her. And I was like I picked up that type of energy from him. And lo and behold, 6 months later, we found out that he was beating her. And I was just like, I can pick up, and I can also for some reason pick up, I think because of what happened to me. But I can pick up people's energy, and I can tell whether someone is that type of energy or not. I think just because I'm in tune to what it is that happened to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've had this conversation, but I also have that ability, especially around predators.
Yes.
And always have. And there are times, there's a story really quickly where, I didn't want to hug I was meeting a person for the first time. I was like 13 and I did not want to hug this person, and I had enough body autonomy in my raising where I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And my grandmother was very upset and was trying to force me, and we got into an argument about it. I ended up calling my dad and said, come get me, because I'm not hanging out with grandma anymore because she's being a bitch and trying to make me hug this guy who I refuse to. And he was like, okay, and then on the way home, he told me a story that, this actual individual had molested my birth mom, Wendy, who, died when I was 1. There were no, so I just knew there was something bad about him, and I wanted nothing to do with it.
I just get goosebumps. I feel like it was your mother coming through saying no.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yep.
Oh my gosh. So I do want to say hello to a couple people.
Yeah.
She said, hi, everyone. So good morning, Lisa. We also have Heather. She said, good morning, late to the party, but excited to be here. And then she also added, what's wrong with you versus are you okay kind of thing. She said, I can't think of more right now, but I'm like you, Sarah. I can usually pick up on someone's emotions before they even open up their mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I've been incorporating, I just something as an aside, because, in our industry right now, we're dealing with a lot of change with the software that we're selling, right?
Yeah.
And so I have started a lot of those conversations with people with just opening up the table, like, how are you feeling about this?
Yeah.
That gives me a huge understanding of where to take the conversation and where to go, and
Are
it's
they nervous?
interesting.
Are they excited? Are they like,
Right.
holy shit,
Are they frustrated? Like, I don't want to change. Nothing's wrong with what I'm doing. Why do I have to make a change if there's no pain, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people I can tell, are just not used to being asked how they feel about something in a business session, right?
Yeah.
So there's always a little pause, and a couple people have said, what do you mean? And I have to repeat it slowly. I don't change the question, but I just repeat it. And
how are you feeling?
I am literally asking you, how are you feeling about this?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, but they're just, it's really interesting. And I would suggest any of you people who, anyone who's in regular conversation with clients or in, situations of big change to incorporate that, because it's been working really well. And it gives you such strategy, direction.
I love that, Cate. I love that so much.
Yeah. You should ask him, because I've done it, in front of her like 10 times now, with these calls.
Yeah. I love that. And whenever I also think about daily interactions and just exchanges and things like that. So we've talked about empathy, active listening, but a part of it is also that, like, that's being, involved in the conversation and things like that. Sometimes you also have to understand, and that's why we had a past thing just on boundaries, like recognizing when interactions are draining you and learning how to manage that overall energy and what it is you can give or what you can receive. So it's understanding that when to say no, like no, or hey, let's meet again, or hey, I need to take a break. So it's being able to also recognize your energy in the things that are helpful to you and the things that aren't helpful to you. And sometimes that can be a really hard decision, because we have a lot of people pleasers that want to, like, I feel obligated. Oh my gosh, I have to, I have to be around this person, that type of thing. No, you don't. You have to understand where you are in life, where it is that you want to expend your energy, and where it is that you want to concentrate, and understand when you also have what I call energy vampires, people that want to fucking take your energy. And it's like, I don't have time for this. Like, I don't want to be around this.
Right. I can't. Yeah. It's not working for me.
Yeah. And being able to say, this isn't working, but it doesn't have to be done in a negative way. It's like, hey, time out, like, this isn't working, working for me. I think, we need, space or whatever it is, or in the moment, like, if you're in an argument with someone, it's being able to say, okay, hey, let's come back together. Let's spend a little time apart. And so we're thinking about that energy. So the energy isn't created or destroyed. You're just transforming it. You're just moving it. And so you're thinking about that negative energy that is within you, and you're emitting it and pushing it, to a different thing. Another thing that my sister does, that she reminds me of. So whenever I have a negative, like just a pain somewhere, she will touch it and she will say, I allow it. there's like a whole thing, but it's ultimately like I allow it, and I'll send it off with a blessing, basically. So you spend time sort of wherever that energy, that negative energy is, and touch it and say, like, I allow it, I accept it, and I send it off with goodwill or good energy or good vibes. And so you're sending off that feeling of whatever it is that is within you, to be able to move on to somewhere else. So you're transforming that energy, and it's interesting how it works.
Yeah, I have to quick read you, because I think I told you all that my dad found a letter from my mom. Like, so my dad was cleaning, my dad's moving.
Yeah.
The house goes on the market on Monday. It was supposed to go on the market today, but it's going on Monday. My dad found a letter to my mom from my mom that she wrote to us in 2014. Mm-hmm. And it says, "Letter to my children and their children." And she says, 2014, the year I learned to love myself. And it's this entire thing, but here's the part that I love. So she said, "So here's what I did. I looked at that mountain of debt and shame, and I kissed it right on the face, gave it a great big hug, and said, 'Thank you for teaching me.' It taught me that I had a lot of shame and that I didn't feel I could manage it, that I couldn't, but that I could understand it." So it was like, I think that it's the same thing your sister does. She said, "I looked at that and I kissed it right on the face, gave it a great big hug, and said, 'Thank you.'"
Yep. Thank you. I allow it. I accept it. And I send it off with a blessing.
Yeah.
Thank you for the blessing. Thank you for the lessons. When we think about like the things that happen to us, that's just energy. That's just thoughts. That's, events or things like that. So it's understanding that lesson that's involved with it, and then saying, what, thank you. Because that's ultimately what your mom was saying, is that she kissed it and said, "Thank you for the lesson. Now I'm sending you off."
Yeah. Right. I don't need this anymore.
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, I don't need this anymore.
It's
Thank
not
you for the lesson.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I've been doing that with everything. Even like, my physical self. It's been great to just release these attachments.
And this is really the steps you can do to raise your energetic frequency.
We're talking about the tools right now. Yeah.
Intention. So I just want to emphasize that that's what we're ultimately talking about, is techniques to raise your energetic frequency intentionally. So everything from practicing gratitude. And that's ultimately what this is acknowledging the negative that happened, but the positive that came out, like the lesson that you learned, and how it's helping you to elevate your vibration, your energy.
Right, of course. And that you have control over it, just like everything we've been talking about, because it is all energy. And that's really like an awesome thing. And I think something to be grateful of regardless. And I think I have found a lot of power in starting my gratitude practice with that in and of itself. Yeah. So it's a reminder to me that I am in control of the energy around me. Yes. That I am in control of my thoughts. So like, that is the first thing that I am grateful for. When I write down what I'm grateful for, my first thing is always just the facts. Like, I am grateful for the fact that I can do this. Anyone can do this. That this is a part of our makeup, our life, that, like, how cool is that when you really think about it? And I am so grateful for it. And it sets the foundation up for me to remember that all day long. Like, that this is a part of everyone. This isn't just something that people who are, ascended can do. We can all do this, and it is what helps us get to those lofty places that we may be looking for.
Yeah. And I also want to emphasize, so for example, my daughter was dealing with some things this week, and she sent me a message, and she just like put it all out there. Basically, it was sort of journaling, and she was like, no action here. I just needed, to like get it off of me and, and express my frustration that I was having and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, I'm glad that I was here for you, that type of thing. I was just like, anytime you need to just vent, let me know. But ultimately, sometimes we just need to listen. People just need to, get out what it is that is going on. And then they move on.
Right.
And sometimes people are stuck, and that's okay too. That just means that they're stagnant and they're stuck in whatever that lesson is, and that's their lesson. Sometimes we also have to pull back from people that are like that, because if they're constantly saying, the same shit, like I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with this. It's like, okay, well, what are you going to do to like get out of that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, you're dealing with the same thing. What do you need to do differently, in your life? What is the lesson that you have in there? But sometimes we just need to get it out, venting. That's why journaling is really good. Also, talking about the gratitude, those are the things that can help you to get to that next level of getting back to the vibration of feeling the energy and feeling good about what is going on. And what we did earlier, like the mindful, breathing, is a great way to intentionally raise your energetic state and just to understand what's going on. And then the other thing that we mentioned is also just surrounding yourself with positive people, positive influences, and I will say that is something I have very intentionally done over the past several years. I have put myself in the middle of multiple different groups or different types of people but I'm seeking out people that are going to help me to also raise my vibration. So those are things that you can do. And when you think back on things that your parents said, you become who you hang around, that type of thing, or the influence of people. It's very true. Like you end up getting the energy of the people that you surround yourself with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more, well, we've talked about this, and I don't need to repeat what you just said, but the more that you surround yourself with people that you always feel good around, that really make you feel like who you are meant to be, the better. Right. And so, and it's certainly okay. That doesn't mean that those other people are bad. Like I have to remind myself of that because I'm such an empathetic person. Yeah. And so I have to notice when I'm acting out of guilt versus actually wanting to help. Right.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. And there are people that you can't like avoid, right? Because maybe you work with them or maybe they're in your family, but you can set yourself up internally for successful interactions with those individuals, still have respect for them.
Yeah.
And still act respectfully toward them, right? You don't have to have respect for them inside if you don't want to. Mm-hmm. But, you can do that and protect yourself, if you're really intentional and if you put the time and energy into thinking about it and deciding how you're going to cope in certain situations, it can totally work. Because the truth is that we all, we can't all be the same. We can't all, be constantly surrounded by people that we, are meant to be surrounded by. And so there are these tactics to protect yourself. And then if you're deploying those tactics, you're going to naturally gravitate towards the others, towards the ones that you should be in communication with.
Yeah. And when you think about the managing your energy and your time, even throughout the day, like within work and things like that. So just incorporating the things that can help you. So everything from incorporating breaks into your day, If you find that you have challenges with individuals, then maybe setting the stage of how it is that you're interacting with them. So maybe it's setting up a meeting with them, where you're a little bit more prepared in what it is that you're in a mindful state to be able to not like go off on the person or things like that. So thinking about those types of things that you can do to be able to help you energy wise. And ultimately it's about, I'll always say it's always about listening to your body. And it's also recognizing when you're feeling a particular way. So if you're getting to that particular state that you're getting frustrated or triggered or things like that, it's also listening to that and saying, okay, when this happens, so it's being mindful and intentional. When this happens, when I feel this way, I need to remind myself, this is what I need to do. Sometimes it's even reminding yourself that when you feel triggered, ask an open-ended question. So if someone says something, just ask them an open-ended question instead of, immediately going after them and defending your point of view, because sometimes you may be triggered and there's really nothing to be triggered by. It could be you misinterpreted what it is the person was saying, or, because of a past experience, you're automatically tying something else into the situation. So by just taking a breath, taking a pause, and asking an open-ended question, that can help you to further clarify. And if that person is also not being so nice, it also brings forward that person is now going to have to say why it is that they're saying this.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's a strategy to help yourself. It's also a strategy to protect yourself, like the open-ended question, or asking, what do they mean by that? Like, I know, Jay did this recently at one of his liquor store stops, and really, was able to get the woman to rethink her position.
Yeah.
At the conference that we visited, Jenna and I both had opportunities to do this with individuals that were, causing harm and weren't really sure they were, it wasn't clear to them they were causing harm, but we had the opportunity to kind of put them straight a little. So
yeah,
it's a very successful strategy, and and when you deploy it right, it reframes the entire situation, right?
Yeah.
Like, so when somebody asks you, like, and you can watch for, like, the triggers to watch for is somebody says, oh, okay, so in your world, blah, 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 right? And then you can say, what do you mean in my world? Right? Like, ask the question and then get them to explain or to back up and say, okay, I didn't mean it like that. You're right.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Help me understand what you mean by that, or whatever the situation is. It's been a really good thing because, one, it allows you to conserve your energy, because keep in mind, every time we get upset, that's just extra energy that we're not putting towards other things. So it's like, where do I want my energy to, be focused on? And it's just identifying how it is that you want to expend your energy.
Yeah. And for me, like, it's been good for me to notice, like, that, like, my emotional responses sometimes are just reactions. They're like things that I can't control that just pop up. But if I am always present and aware of them, and I can get curious immediately, I get to the point where I am handling it so much faster that, like, I'm much more efficient, right? Mm-hmm. Than just trying to ignore it or letting it simmer, rather than being like, ooh, I don't like what that person just said, like, and then just like carrying it with me, instead of being like, okay, I got to deal with this head on immediately. Like, they just said something I don't like, I got to get curious about it. And then, not only am I reframing the situation for them and myself, I'm regulating my emotions while doing so.
Yeah. I love that. Mm-hmm. So when we think about protecting and replenishing our vital energy, what are some things that you do? I can tell you, for me, it has been establishing healthy boundaries. It has also been practicing self-care. So we've talked about this many times. So I will spend every 6 weeks, I will get a massage, I'll get my hair done. So it's certain things that I do. I also meet with a depth psychologist every other week just to be able to talk through things. So what are some tactics that you also take to be able to replenish your energy and help protect your energy?
Yeah. Sleep is important. I pay attention to it and I do my best to protect it and try hard to get it even when I'm not, or, so I've noticed that's because lack of sleep or being tired is a huge vulnerability for me. So that's a big act of self-care that I have to deploy and I have to be on top of. The other things I do is, I do therapy. I do regularly meditate. I even when I feel like I don't have time, I force myself to do a little bit of journaling, do a little bit of planning. It sets myself up for success. And I never regret it afterward. I never say, oh, I wish I hadn't journaled.
I know.
Or, right? Like I never say like, well, that was a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
So I look for those things in my life. Like I recently told, one of my kids, like, I've actually gone to a million different types of church services. And even the ones where, I didn't necessarily fit in that group, I still didn't regret it walking out. I always felt like I learned something or something was new, same thing with trainings, so like focus on how the situations make you feel. That's like a really helpful tool. And I do that a lot. Because that type of awareness is important for me. Otherwise I will just keep like steamrolling through life,
Yeah.
So those are some of the things I do. And then
I think sleep is very important. That is definitely one of the ways that we help to revive. And I know that that's been something you've been working on, improve sleep.
Yeah, definitely. And then I do the same thing. Jen and I work really hard to do the same thing with our relationship. And sometimes it feels a little indulgent, especially as we might be comparing ourselves to other relationships. But we just do what feels right for us. And so, we've noticed that because of the lifestyle we lead and how much time we expend and give and energy that we give to our kids, that we need really regular breaks, So like we take a, pre-getaway before our big road trip with the kids, and we take a post-getaway, and even the kids are like, you're doing what? You're going back out? And we're like, yes. Because
not only less time.
Not only do we need to debrief, we also need to just recover, right? Just like you are going and just vegging in your room, that's less of an option for moms unless we separate ourselves, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I also think about other things that I do. And I know there was one other thing I wanted to tell you. While I was here, I got a massage, and the person that gave me the massage did pressure points. So she just she would find stuff in me, and she would know that I was having a problem before I told her I was having a problem. So like you can feel that energy, that ball or that knot or whatever it is within you. And so she just pressed, and what she told me is, I do massages a little bit differently, and I never felt so amazing after a massage than I did after this one. She would just press it, and she would just hold it, and she would be like, okay, breathe. So I would breathe in, I would breathe out. And she was like, is this radiating or is it localized? So I would tell her, and then she would like keep breathing until basically it's gone. So there were some that I was breathing in and out like multiple times. Like I was going about like 12 times, and I was like, it's still there. But she would just hold it that entire time. And then once it would release, it was gone. And then she'd go to another spot. but it was really amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, I need Jay to learn this, because like I just felt so amazing afterwards, because she was really like finding all of those little spots within me and then just getting them to release.
Yeah.
Within me. It was amazing.
I do that for Jenna in one particular area on her shoulder, but and so I know exactly what you're talking about. It works. Like I just, I can find a spot, and it's never in the same place, but it's, around the same area, and I can find it, and, I can find like the knot or just like have a knowing, and I push on it like so fucking hard.
Well, I know.
Yeah. And,
I was like, ooh, I was like,
yes. Yes. Yeah. And if she breathes through it, it actually like ends up kind of like, just releasing or destroying that, like that cause of pain.
Yeah. It was awesome. Now I'm sore, day after. So I've got a lot to sort of work through. And I'm very, very sore, but it felt amazing immediately afterwards. I was like, wow. I was like, look at that, like the transfer. I was thinking this week, I was like, it was the transfer of energy, like pushing it out.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Right.
Yeah.
And it is, that's a very, very physical adaptation or representation of like the transfer of energy, right? Like, so her forcing, into that spot and it dissipating, Yeah. There's no reason why like pushing on something should make it go away, right? Like if you think about it that way.
I just looked down and it says 11:11, which is my Eastern time zone number down here. And so I saw that. So I want to wrap things up. So this week, or this month, we're talking about the law of energy. So today I want to wrap up today's topic. And then before we do that, I just also want to remind everyone of the schedule. So we have next week, we actually have Jenna Phillips, who's going to be joining us next week to talk further about the law of energy. And so because she's amazing when it comes to this particular topic, this is something she's also continued to get into, but we also have had huge requests for her to come back. So we felt that it was very appropriate to be able to have her join us. The next week, Cate and I are going to talk about more individual experiences where we've dealt with the law of energy. And then we have a panel joining us for the last week of the month. And so, Cate, do you want to spend a little time on sort of a recap or things related to the law of energy that you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think one of the most important lessons of this topic in general is to trust. Trust what you're feeling, what you're picking up on, what your intuition is a big part of energy and the energy around you. So, we all have that ability, and we just need to trust ourselves.
I love that. Yeah. So for me, final thoughts on energy is that if I were to encourage anyone to do anything, it would be to have a greater mind-body connection. So spending time really feeling what it is that your body is trying to tell you, because one, that helps you not only to heal from illness, it helps you to understand the things that you may be struggling with, that you need to focus on. It also helps you from a perspective understanding things that you might need to improve related to relationships or past ancestral type things that you might be carrying on. And then ultimately for me, focusing on energy is about spiritual growth. It's about understanding more about yourself, and also understanding that there is such a thing as energy healing, and that we can, through energy, help ourselves, and we can actually heal not only our mind, but our body. We can release fear, because that is one of the things that sort of keeps us back, is fear. And that's just energy built up within you. So the moment we release that energy, we focus on opening ourselves up, focusing on empathy, focusing on love, and connecting that mind body. That is really the thing that allows us to better create and manifest the things that we want in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic final thoughts and advice, I think.
Thank you. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And please come back next week, as we will be talking with Jenna and getting deeper into the law of energy.
Yes. See you. Have a badass week. Have a badass weekend.